Welcome, everyone. As part of our community update, we were invited today to participate in a teleconference call with our Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. The following program, moderated by Michael Biddle, who is the president of the Adirondack Chamber of Commerce, is a very insightful conversation about all of the issues that we're concerned about as citizens in the North Country concerning this crisis.
Congresswoman Stefanik, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a number of questions to get to today. I know you'd like to make some brief introductory remarks, and we have so many people on the line here. I'd also like to thank Mark Shaw and StoredTech for their partnership in hosting this call.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the Adirondack Regional Chamber for being creative and using technology to provide this opportunity for your members. Thank you to Mark Shaw for also helping us get this situated to make sure that everybody is able to access this important conversation. At the top, I will give a brief update as to what I and my office have been doing to address coronavirus, and then talk about some of the small business concerns I've been hearing from hundreds of conversations I've had across the district, and then we'll move right to questions. So first of all, it is important to continue taking guidance from the CDC and county public health officials. The coronavirus has been elevated to a global pandemic, and as we know, new cases are occurring across the United States. And the state of New York has the most confirmed cases in the country, and counties across our district have been impacted. I have been on county public health task force calls throughout the week and have been in contact with all of the CEOs of hospitals across the district to ensure that, foremost, their public health needs are met. Additionally, I have participated in calls with superintendents and BOCES in school districts to ensure that the school nutrition programs provided to our students, that those are up and running. I also have been in contact with all of the county offices of the aging to ensure that they have all the federal resources they need to ensure that our seniors have access to food and food delivery programs right now. All of these public health officials and county officials, hospital workers have been doing tremendous work. I wanted to briefly touch upon the work we've been doing in Congress. We passed two major bills, and there are likely to be more legislative packages in the future. The first one was the $8.3 billion in supplemental funding to make testing more available, support treatments, and ultimately provide funding for a vaccination. This first package also included the Small Business Administration deeming coronavirus a disaster, and it began offering $1 billion in low-interest SBA loans to businesses that are suffering economic hardship and are in need of those immediate resources. As of today, the state of New York has submitted a formal request to the SBA to make small businesses across the state eligible, and this request was approved. So we will be getting that information out from our offices. Small businesses can apply at disasterloan.sba.gov. I'll say that again, disasterloan.sba.gov, and my office will be sending that information out. Additionally, the president declared a national emergency, which immediately increases federal resources to the Department of Health and Human Services. This also activates FEMA to mobilize their resources. Earlier this week, Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, announced that the IRS will postpone the April 15th tax payment deadline by 90 days and waive all interest and penalties. This ability to defer payments will be available for those who owe $1 million or less, and for corporations that owe $10 million or less. Filing must still be done by April 15th, but individuals and businesses are able to hold on to the money they owe the IRS, offering them liquidity over these next few weeks. That was the first package. The second legislative package that the House passed last night at around midnight between Friday and Saturday, which I voted in support of, and the president just signed into law. This is new funding and program flexibility for food security programs and school meals. Obviously, that's very important in our district. It also created a new temporary sick leave provision, allowing 10 days of paid sick leave to ensure that workers who are sick, quarantined, or taking care of a family member or child home from school will not have to miss their paychecks. Employers are going to be compensated immediately for the paid leave that they pay to workers through a refundable payroll tax credit. We're getting quite a few questions from businesses that I've talked to about this, and we will work with you on an individual basis to make sure that you understand how that works for your business. In this legislative package, also, we temporarily increased the federal share of Medicaid payments, FMAP, by 6.2%. This will reduce the percentage that must be paid by New York counties, which frees up local resources to respond to the crisis. This was the number one priority of counties in my district, and we were able to get that done. Looking forward, we are currently in negotiations on a third legislative package, which we hope to finalize in the next few days. It is very clear to me, as I've had hundreds of conversations from individuals as well as small businesses calling into the office, that we need to provide relief and financial support given the significant economic hardship that we are going through as a community, as a country. My number one priority is making sure that small businesses and workers are able to access that relief. Our district in the North Country is made up of small businesses that fuel our economy, and my focus is on relief for Main Street because that is what keeps us growing and doing well. I have a particular focus on restaurants, small hotels and motels, other businesses related to tourism that have been impacted by this. With that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can get through as many questions as possible.
Congresswoman, thank you so much. There were a number of questions here from our members, and I want to just thank our members and everyone on the line that put forth questions. Could you please explain to me how the Families First Coronavirus Response Act affects my small business, less than 500 people? From what I've read, we would have to pay 2 weeks of sick leave at full pay and up to 10 weeks at 2/3 pay out of our operating budget.
Sure. So I know this is a particular question from, we know which company this question is. We know there's a unique set of circumstances about how it specifically impacts their payroll tax, and the calculation doesn't appear to work. We are going to be in touch with this particular company to make sure that we address that. The same goes for other companies on the line here today, because the temporary paid sick leave provision is, there's a lot of uncertainty from small businesses, and we're going to do that on a case-by-case basis.
There's another similar question here for small business. I only want to know what the plan is to help small business, especially the hospitality industry and retail. I don't believe that throwing $1,000 is the answer, because the effects are going to be long term. Most of us don't have savings to tide us over. Corporations always get bailed out by the federal government. What happens to the little guy?
Important question. My priority is Main Street over Wall Street. This economic relief package needs to be geared toward small businesses, the mom and pop businesses across this district and across the country that are the engine of our economy. And I will fight to make sure that small businesses are at the heart of this next legislative package. I think we need to provide economic relief directly to small businesses in the hospitality, tourism, and restaurant industry, and directly to families so that they're able to get over this difficult crisis, which is going to be an economic hardship, and then we're able to get them back to work as soon as possible. So my priority is Main Street over Wall Street.
As you're aware, tourism is a significant component of our local economy. We are all appreciative of the efforts in Washington to provide support to our citizens whose income has suffered. My concern is that Warren County cannot be open for our tourism business. The economic effects could linger for a year or more. What, if anything, can you tell us about the discussions in Washington to support the recovery of our critical, important seasonal economy?
Well, the most important discussions I've been having are with business owners locally in Warren County and across the district. I've talked to many of the local owners of local hotels, local tourist-related businesses, retail shops and restaurants who are really concerned about bearing the brunt of this, since much of their sales and revenue is during the tourist season, and we're seeing obviously a huge decline in tourism. The number one priority right now is following the guidance from CDC to flatten the curve. What that means is making sure that we mitigate any further growth of coronavirus, because the sooner we get past this, the easier it's going to be to get back to business. My priority is making sure that there is immediate liquidity for those small businesses to continue to pay rents, to pay mortgages, and to make payroll in the interim. And again, I think there needs to be a particular part of the relief package that's focused on small hotels, restaurants, and tourist-related businesses.
Actually, out of the 24 questions that we received, Congresswoman, no less than 5 of them were related to nonprofits. So I'm going to focus in on one here that should hopefully relate to all 5 questions about nonprofits. My question is whether they will include nonprofits in their aid packages. Nonprofits work on small margins and are usually dependent on donations that will surely dip in the coming months. Many will go out of business while they are spending more to meet urgent community needs during this crisis.
Absolutely. Small nonprofits are eligible for these SBA loans, and we would encourage you to apply for them. Nonprofits are critical to our region, and from some of the Lake George nonprofits to the Adirondack nonprofits, many of our nonprofits are also critical employers, so we want to make sure that you continue to have the fiscal health. So I would refer you to the SBA program, and there will be additional programs available in this next legislative package we vote on.
The president has said that students can continue learning with online instructions if schools are closed as a result of the coronavirus. As you should know, many families in upstate New York still do not have high-speed internet connections. How do you suggest online instruction take place for those families that do not have an internet connection?
Really good question. I've talked to, as I said, I've been on many of the calls with school superintendents, and I've spoken with teachers, parents, and just our educators across the district. They are doing amazing work, and we need to thank them. They're thinking creatively. They are doing drop-offs of packets for students who have difficulty accessing online. This reiterates the need to close the digital divide between rural and suburban and urban America, and it's a particular priority in the North Country. The FCC has made some immediate announcements that are trying to help, including waiving certain requirements under their rural health and E-rate programs that allows schools and libraries to increase Wi-Fi capacity. But this highlights why we need to immediately close this rural divide. Our teachers in this district are doing an amazing job thinking creatively, and many of our students do have access online, and the ones that don't, we're making sure, and I know our teachers are going above and beyond to make sure they have the materials to review and continue their studies.
Along that same line, what federal mandate relief can New York State schools expect from the president and from the federal government?
It's a great question. It's something that I actually put out a statement today. One concern I've heard from teachers, principals, and parents is the testing requirements. And I believe we should waive those federal testing requirements for this year, since this is such an uncertain and unprecedented time, and we don't want our school districts, teachers, and students penalized for testing, which is going to be a really tough time. So I want those waived for the year, and I'm calling on the Department of Education to do so, and I'm optimistic they will agree to do that.
When will the federal government start releasing stockpiled, much-needed medical supplies like masks and respirators to hospitals under siege? The demand is now, not once the hospitals are making decisions about who to treat and who to defer treatment to.
Great question. It's the issue that I speak with the hospital CEOs, physicians, and the county public health officials on a daily and hourly basis. We want to make sure that the Department of Defense is a part of this solution. The Secretary of Defense did announce that they will be making available 5 million N95 respirator masks and other personal protective equipment from their strategic reserves. The first 1 million masks will be made available immediately. My office is reaching out to construction, manufacturing, and infrastructure companies all across the district, urging them to donate any masks that they have or personal protective equipment to our county public health officials. Our hospitals are doing a tremendous job with what they have on hand. I also had a conversation earlier today with the head of emergency services of New York State in the governor's office, talking about some of the specific county requests in my district to make sure that we can fast track those requests. I believe that we need to have a whole of government approach. This is about everyone working together, and the Department of Defense needs to be a part of this solution.
Congresswoman, do you anticipate a national lockdown? If so, how long? If not a complete lockdown, do you anticipate an intra-state travel ban? If so, how will this affect the supply chain? Clarify the taxpayer stimulus proposal. Who will be entitled to money and how much?
Really important question. There is not a national lockdown. It's important to follow the guidance of CDC and county public health officials. Again, we're trying to encourage everyone to follow that guidance, which is social distancing and lessening any non-essential travel to try to flatten the curve and try to ensure that we're able to mitigate and prevent further growth of coronavirus. I do not anticipate a national lockdown, but I want to urge businesses and families to take this seriously and really rely on the CDC for guidance. The most recent guidance is regarding social distancing and discouraging any event greater than 10 people. That's something that everyone needs to take seriously. And also the governor has been very clear that there is not a statewide lockdown. But essential, we need to mitigate non-essential travel and really be smart about this, be vigilant, and the safety and health of our community is at stake. In terms of the legislative package and upcoming stimulus proposal, again, small businesses are eligible. We encourage small businesses to apply for the SBA programs that have already been made available. There will be more programs made available, and we will work with the chamber to get that information out.
What are the potential tax and other financial implications for American taxpayers for these multi-billion-dollar assistance plans?
Well, we need to remember as legislators that every dollar that we spend, those are taxpayer dollars. Those are dollars that the American people work hard to contribute. And many Americans, the vast majority of our workforce across this country, small business owners, are going through an incredibly unprecedented time. That's why I think the priority for this next economic package should be providing liquidity to businesses and the workers to make sure they're able to get through this in the short-term, immediate future. And then I think it's going to be important that we get back to more responsible spending. Times like this really highlight the need to have fiscal responsibility as a country to be able to ramp up when economic relief is needed immediately and when there needs to be a jump start in investment, for example, in research and development for a vaccination. That's why I think broadly, philosophically, I believe deeply in fiscal responsibility to save for times of crisis as a nation.
Practically all business interruption insurance policies will not cover losses caused by communicable disease, virus, pandemic. Is the government considering backstop legislation similar to the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act from 2001 that would allow insurers to consider pandemic as a covered cost of loss? They could adjust the loss with their policyholder with the government funding the payment.
This is something that is being discussed at the federal level. We need to understand that we're in an unprecedented and uncertain time, and we are considering all sorts of good ideas and proposals to help businesses get through this difficult time. So some members are discussing this as a concept. We will keep you posted. And I do think that when we look back after we overcome this crisis, we will have learned a lot to ensure that we can further prepare our country and our businesses and our families for pandemics of the future, which we hope to avoid.
This questioner would like an overview of paid leave policies for workers who are quote unquote not feeling well, not all symptoms, and not going to get tested at this point. Are we obligated to provide more than our normal sick leave policy? How long must we allow if not been tested positive? Do we pay all now and then tax credits? How do we handle with other employees? We have all of our enhanced sanitation in place. Another employee calls out and indicates some symptoms, others at risk. If one or more decides to go home, self-quarantine, allow paid sick time, and then also the state just upped the reduction from 50% to 75%. Really the question here is, how do our businesses and all across the board handle illnesses in general, especially if they're not coronavirus related?
Well, we want any employee who is ill or is not feeling well, we want them to stay home. We want people to make those decisions now, and we hope employers are stepping up, and they are across this district, to be a part of the solution. Regarding the specific paid leave provisions that are temporary, businesses under 50 are exempted from this requirement. But again, we want to make sure that employees, if they are not feeling well, they are able to stay home and make sure that we're going to make sure that workers continue to get paid, and we're happy to work with specific businesses. We're going to distribute to the chamber further information on the paid leave requirements, since there are so many questions about this, Mike, and I would ask that you send that to all of the members. And if I know there are a lot of individual questions, please reach out to my office and we will help each and every business work through this.
We really appreciate it. 82% of the members of the Adirondack Chamber are 20 employees or less, and it goes over 90% when it's 50 employees or less. We need the federal government's help delineating and caring for businesses across the board, don't get me wrong. But in the information being put out, if the federal government could really highlight the different sizes, if there are different effects and guidance, that would be a big help.
Yes, we will send that chart to you, and hopefully we can get that out right after this call.
We've seen a lot of movement on Wall Street as far as people's retirement, as far as some folks' life savings. As Wall Street reacts to the situation, what are the possible likely consequences to individuals? I know there's been a lot of focus on the stock market daily. I'm focused on Main Street and the impact of small businesses and the impact on people's retirement. We want to make sure that we get through this crisis and provide the relief to small businesses and Main Street and working families as quickly as possible to get through this and get the economy back on track. We have been in a very healthy economy, a growing economy with historic low unemployment prior to this crisis, and we want to provide, my priority is providing the relief in this very unprecedented time so that we can get back to economic growth. I would urge folks to continue to, stay in contact if they have financial planners. This is a time of great uncertainty, but continue to stay in contact and stay calm, which I know is very difficult, but stay calm and vigilant. Congresswoman, thank you so much for answering that question. Our next question concerns Cobra and 401k. How can we make plans to make it more effective and efficient without penalties for people to quickly access Cobra and 401k?
Absolutely. That is being considered, and I support it. I think it's very important to make sure that people who have changing employment status right now are able to access Cobra in the interim and aren't facing huge costs. We need to lower the cost and give families access to cash and healthcare as soon as possible. I think the 401k idea is also another great idea to allow folks to draw from 401ks without facing penalties. So I will pass that along. I think those are two great ideas to be included in this next legislative package in the next 2 weeks.
One of the largest things on our members' minds across the board, whether it's a business with one person or thousands of people, is we have children out of school now. So the biggest is childcare for these folks. and for parents that have to continue to work either at home or at their job through non-essential or essential businesses. What's the government doing to help support childcare?
I support childcare. We need to be forward-leaning in this. This will be in the next legislative package to make sure that we're providing financial support for childcare. There's also new childcare facilities that are popping up across the district because there's an increased demand, obviously, since the schools are closed. So that will be in the next legislative package, and those are provisions that I'm going to support, and I've raised that issue because it's an issue I'm hearing across the district.
We're getting some breakdown here at the state level about essential and non-essential jobs. From one of our emergency squad members, they just want to make sure that EMS will, for going forward, be described in law as an essential business. Do you have any comment on that, Congresswoman?
I support that. That decision needs to be made at the state level, but I fully support emergency services to be designated as essential.
The last thing here that I really have, and it's not a question, but it's something I've heard from all of our small business and large business owners and people across the region. Congresswoman, you and I have spoken about this. People are hungry for consistency and clarity. They're hungry for leadership and a voice. And they're hungry for empathy for our business owners and for each and every individual neighbor in our region. I know you know that, but I wanted to make sure to repeat that on behalf of our 778 members and their families, and more importantly for our greater community as a whole.
Yes, I am so appreciative of all of the small businesses. Many of you are going above and beyond during this uncertain time. You care so deeply about the workforce and the broader community, and Silver Bay is a great example of a small business, but you guys punch above your weight just in terms of the, the free military R&R program you run, the cancer respites that you fund, the amount of money that small businesses pump into the local economy. Also, our small businesses are stepping up. I was on the phone with a manufacturer in Clinton County, Mold Rights. They manufacture caps to hand sanitizer and and pill bottles, and they are ramping up production to keep pace with the demand. So our businesses are really stepping up. I know this is an uncertain time. I think back to my upbringing as a kid with my family small business. There hasn't been a single day since my family small business opened that we have not been open. And this is a really challenging time for businesses, and we will get through this together. The sooner we flatten this curve and follow public health advice and recommendations, the sooner we will get through this, and we can start the prospect of rebuilding and overcoming these economic challenges. So I'm grateful. We've had lots of small businesses reach out. Every single small business that reaches out to my office will get a call back. I've had hundreds of those conversations, and those will continue. And you have my commitment, Mike. I am prioritizing Main Street of the North Country over corporate bailouts. We want the relief to go to Main Street and the small businesses that are the engine of our economy.
Thank you so much. And in closing, you've been very accessible, you and your team, as has everyone at the county, the local, the state, and the federal level. This is an unprecedented time, and I am amazed and blown away at the responsiveness of all of our elected officials on both sides of the aisle, because we can't be thinking that way anymore. We're Americans first, and as Americans, we will get through this together. We all thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to your leadership.
Thanks. Every business should feel free to contact my office. We will follow up with the information on paid leave and the small business disaster relief loans that I talked about today. And we encourage you to get that out to the chamber, Mike. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found the program as informative and as educational as we did. Please be careful out there. We'll get through this together.